Speak, friend, and enter. It's time for Science! SciFriday on SkyWatchTV. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert, and joining us in studio, as always, my best friend and the SkyWatchTV science editor, Sharon Gilbert.
Hi, honey.
Hi, sweetheart.
Melon.
Yes.
That's the Middle Earth name, the Elvish word for friend.
We are total geeks.
We truly are. Way too geeky. In fact, your ears are a little bit pointy.
They are. I always thought, that's why I related so well to Mr. Spock on Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned to do
the
this.
thing. Oh, yeah, the Spock brow.
Oh, and of course, this has got actually Jewish significance.
It does, and
Yeah.
that's actually Nimoy came up with.
Right. So there's a little backstory to that most of us don't even know.
We don't know half the things that are going on in the world.
We don't even know half the things we talk about on this
I don't
program.
know who are you again? I don't know who I am. Well, welcome again to SciFriday. You know what? We've got lots of stuff to talk about. We've got the longest list I think we've ever had, and we'll never get through.
We'll never get through all of it.
No.
So let's just dive in and see how much we can cover.
What's the first thing you want to talk about?
Well, I thought there was something. As long as we're starting with this Star Trek reference, there was a new engine that NASA has been talking about here for some months. We mentioned it once or twice on the daily news updates. It's what they're calling the M drive, or the EM drive, which is supposedly a fuel-free engine that the developers,
drive.
yes,
Is that what they're saying?
I believe so. But the idea that this is fuel-free almost makes it sound like a perpetual motion machine. Like one of those Rube Goldberg type things.
No, perpetual motion means that it doesn't require any outside stimulus. This does, because it's using solar energy.
Well, it's using solar energy to create the power, and it supposedly, according to the designers who've been working on this, creates thrust by bouncing microwaves around inside of a chamber. And they claim that it could generate enough power to transport a craft to Mars in 10 weeks.
And cook a turkey on
And
the way
cook a
there.
turkey in less than 20 minutes, which is really incredible. So, but now, many of the scholars have looked at this, and engineers have looked at this, say that this just cannot possibly work because you cannot defy the laws of physics. It supposedly, violates the laws of physics, but there are engineers now and scientists who are going to look at this.
It's being peer-reviewed right now.
It is going to be
which may or
peer-reviewed.
may not mean it will work. It's just whether or not they believe that it does not violate the laws of physics.
Right. And peer review is, someone who was part of the academic community.
Yes.
When we met, you were working at the IU.
I was conducting research.
And
yes,
conducting
I was.
retool at the School of Optometry for
And they
Indiana
let me
University.
do it. That's what's amazing.
Yeah. You understand that peer review doesn't necessarily mean that something is actually passed some sort of test that validates the science.
Precisely. It simply is having people who are trusted in the field look at the paper, make sure, first of all, that you did your due diligence, that the numbers add up, this and that. But it doesn't mean that it will work.
Yeah. And there are some horror stories out there, and I don't have the numbers in front of me because I didn't think we'd go here, but showing that even peer-reviewed science, that a fraction, less than half of the experiments that make it into peer-reviewed journals are actually replicable. So
I've seen dachshund scientists, though, and their stuff always works.
Yeah. Or else.
German engineering.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We could talk about a bunch of things. Well, you've probably talked about this on your updates already, but just in case you're not aware of it, there is a 3D printed version of the Gate of Bel from Palmyra that is it really is being constructed in London, and then later on this year, it'll be constructed in New York City.
Right.
What I find interesting about those two cities is that they are connected already. They both have the needle of Cleopatra in them.
And this was really interesting. I had not made this connection, but I think this is
I'm doing
significant.
a 19th century thing, so London is on my brain all the time.
Yeah, and there have been some claims that have made it into the Christian media that I think are maybe a little bit sensationalist
about the Bel Gate?
But the Temple of Bel. Yeah, this is from the Temple of Bel, which was built in the 1st century. As we talked about it last week, it was dedicated in the year 32. So just about the time Jesus was going to the cross, this Temple of Bel or Baal or Baal was being dedicated.
Yes.
And in Jesus' own words, he links Baal to Satan. So we're looking at these gates, replicas of the gates that for the temple that was destroyed by the Islamic State last year, being constructed in London and in New York.
Yeah.
And as you point out, these needles of Cleopatra.
Yeah, Cleopatra's needles,
Yeah.
They are obelisks.
Right. Which, of course, represents the phallus of Osiris.
It does, and so you're getting into this idea. If you have a gateway, in many ways, that is the female receptacle. The needle, the obelisk. Sorry, forgot the word. Let me come in again. That represents the male aspect,
Right.
and so you've got, well, frankly, the Ghostbusters combination.
Yes.
You've got the keymaster and the gatekeeper.
Exactly. and these obelisks were removed from the Egyptian city of Heliopolis, where they were constructed in 1450 BC or thereabouts by the Pharaoh Thutmose III,
Yeah.
who was considered the greatest conqueror of all of the Egyptian pharaohs. I mean,
Yeah.
Ramses, no, Thutmose. He actually waged war as far north as the Euphrates River, and the Battle of Kadesh against the kingdom of Mitanni.
Well, you're writing a book about all
And-
this
and I'm
right
getting
now,
into
so
some of that
you're
stuff.
really
Right.
reading up on this. This is kind of new to me.
But anyway, this was a matching pair of obelisks
Yes.
from the city of Heliopolis that goes
Yeah.
back, again, 3,500 years. And they've
Yeah.
been set up, one in London, one in New York.
And the fact that we're building the gateway, the female aspect
Yes.
to both, that's
Yes.
a little creepy.
There's
to
a
me.
little more significance to
The
it than
reason
that.
I brought
Right.
it up in the science update is because it's being done with 3D printing.
Yes.
3D printing is all the rage. It's everywhere. It can be used to recreate almost everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that includes life forms.
Yeah.
All you need to do is have the correct substrate to print with and a pattern, and it'll just go to town.
Well, we've
They're
s-
now printing robots now that once they're done, they walk away.
And we've seen stories about how they can print replacement skin or organs like ears. And
Exactly, and the belief is that pretty soon, if not already, that scientists will be able to 3D print any kind of molecule. That all you need to do is have the formula for the vaccine or the formula for the virus and go to town.
It's incredible what science is able to
It's
come up
pretty
with.
crazy what science comes up with.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is actually, well, sounds crazy, but we've actually talked with Chuck Missler about it here on this program within the last 6 months. Scientists who seriously consider the possibility that we're living inside a hologram.
There's been a lot of buzz about that. You and I actually have talked about sort of kicked around the idea about having another show that we do together. We're going to take over this. Another show that we do together where we actually are looking at the memes in media.
Yeah.
Where television, fiction, video games, graphic novels,
News reports,
movies,
yeah.
news reports, any type of information that you consume, whether it's entertainment, infotainment, or strict, information. What is it we're being taught to believe?
Right.
And I think this is something that really is disturbing, that we're seeing this meme over and over again. Chuck talked about it when he was here.
Yeah, and it is possible because when you realize that the fabric of reality, and this is the type of thing that Josh and Christina Peck talk about on their program Into the Multiverse.
And that Chuck has been talking about
Yes,
for years.
and Chuck has been talking about, and you can find some of his teachings online at khouse.org, the Koinonia House website, that the very building blocks of reality, units of time, subatomic particles, you can theoretically slice something in half and continue slicing it in half
Ad
forever.
infinitum,
But you find out that when you get down to a certain point, the Planck constant, you can no longer divide that unit of space or that unit of time any further.
Yeah.
You've gone as far as you can go. And it is like the digital basis upon which everything is created. And so, scientists are seriously discussing this. In fact, this past Tuesday at the American Museum of Natural History in New York, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who hosted that short-lived reboot of the Cosmos television program recently. But he was joined by a theoretical physicist from Harvard, a cosmologist from MIT, professor of philosophy from New York University, theoretical physicist from MIT, theoretical physicist from University of Maryland. I mean, these are not cranks.
A serious discussion. And their conclusion was?
Well, it depended on who you asked. They asked the scientist, what is the percentage, how likely is it that the universe is actually a simulation? The theoretical physicist, Lisa Randall, she said 0% chance.
She was programmed to say that.
Yeah, the professor of philosophy said, and this was the interesting answer, the professor of philosophy, I think, had the most intelligent answer. Even if we were inside a simulation, we wouldn't know because the evidence that we can perceive would be part of the simulation.
Would all be simulated,
That's
exactly.
Right.
I agree with that. I think another one said 17%.
17%,
right? Where'd you come up with that?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Pull it out of his.
Out of the air.
Out of the air.
Yeah, but we as Christians understand that even though you can make the case that it is a simulation, it is reality. God created us to live inside this physical realm, but that someday we will be able to perceive the reality in its entirety.
Yeah,
and
truth is so much larger than we can perceive.
Right. We're living inside a greater reality that we only can perceive in part.
Yeah, we're living inside a bubble, you might say.
Yeah.
There's a story that I want to talk about, and it gets back to this idea of studying the brain. And we've said many times on this show that the whole Brain Initiative and the European version of it, that these are intended not only to help, learn about human neuroanatomy and physiology to better understand it, to create drugs that will help to make lots of money, to be honest with you, but also to help design new computers. There's an interesting new study that came out about anti-memories.
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 Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, now is this excuse me, like the difference between matter and antimatter, or is it?
No, not really. Neurons have excitatory properties and inhibitory properties. Whenever you learn something new, your neuron is excited and stores that information. If the normal state of the brain should be pretty much neutral. So these excited neurons, they're inhibitory neurons that go in and say, "Shut up."
Oh.
You're blowing our cool. Shut up.
You're harshing our mellow.
Pretty much. Melon, friend, stop. But whenever you learn something new, that's why you can't quite retain it, because you're trying to get back to that sort of 0 point. Well, since this discovery, there have been transcranial excitatory electrical stimulus, this transduction through the cranium that's being used in a lot of therapeutics right now. This was used on human subjects to find out if they could retrieve the lost memory that had been sort of told to shut up and go away. They did.
Oh, really?
Yes. They're considering now this idea of the inhibitory process as an anti-memory coming and they're fighting with the memory. Neuroscientists truly don't understand how we work. And I firmly believe it's because we go far beyond the physical. Yeah. There is a metaphysical, spiritual aspect to who we are, and much of who we are is probably resident outside what we can perceive.
You know, that tracks with the research that Chris Putnam pulled together and included in his book, The Supernatural Realm, or Supernatural Worldview.
And he's got a TV show that we're going to be producing soon on that very topic.
Yeah, and he discusses the multitude of cases that are, that cannot be denied or just wished away by naturalist skeptics, that people, especially those who've suffered near-death experiences, perceive things happening around them when they are clinically dead, which means they are able to hear and to see without the use of their eyes or their ears.
That's just as clinically dead isn't just that your heart stopped. Technically now I think they're saying you have to have no neural activity.
Right. And so while the brain is essentially shut down, which means it is not processing any input from the eyes or the ears, people are able to repeat conversations that took place in their presence when they were clinically dead.
Yeah.
Or in one case, a woman was able to say, you know, there's a shoe on the window ledge on the 10th floor or whatever of the building.
So it's verifiable.
Something was verifiable, right? And there's a word for this, but there are aspects of their stories that are verifiable. That they could not, information they could not have possibly known.
Yeah.
In this case, in the case of the woman in Seattle with the shoe on the window ledge, it was not where she would have been able to see it even when she was awake, but she was brought into the hospital unconscious, having suffered a massive heart attack. So, you know, again, if we can perceive, if we can hear and we can see when our physical bodies are non-functional, you're right. There is more to human consciousness than just a meat computer.
Yeah.
In the words of the skeptics, and you're talking about memories and anti-memories. You know, there are things that all of us would like to
Forget.
forget.
Yeah. Well, that's
That
one of the theories, is that you can actually help people to forget now that they understand how the inhibitory process works.
Because suffering is a bad thing to be avoided at all costs. Well, no, suffering is what makes us part of who we are. And that's what makes Nita Horn's new biography, No Fences, so compelling and so inspiring. And we want to mention this because we've been talking about it for a while, and the weeks have gone by. The book is finally here. And it is available for pre-order now. The official release date is April 19th. But in conjunction with the release, there's an opportunity for you perhaps to tell your story and to have it told to the world by Defender Publishing. We'll tell you more about that in a second. And SciFriday continues right after this. To celebrate the release of Nita Horn's inspiring new book, No Fences, SkyWatch TV would like you to tell your story, because after all, even if you don't think so, you actually have a story.
Send in your story, and we are going to choose the 10 best, and they'll be published for Christmas release in an anthology of those stories, along with the book that you buy. That is actually only $19.95. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
For free. Tom Horn, crazy guy, he's throwing in a journal, which on its own, most of these retail for $20 on their own. So this journal is to help you start writing your story. When you buy the book, not only are you going to be enrolled in this and you can send in your story, but you'll get a plastic pony, you'll get a journal of your own, and the proceeds from the book are going to help fund the studio we're building for SkyWatch Women, and Nita Horn is going to be one of our panel members.
The 10 authors who are selected for the anthology, published by Defender Publishing in time for Christmas, will also receive a $500 cash prize.
That'll go a long way at Christmas time, won't it?
Yes, it will. Even if your story is not one of those selected for the anthology, if you've taken the time to write your story, you've left a legacy for your children and for your grandchildren.
Amen to that.
For complete instructions and details on this opportunity, please log on to skywatchtv.com/nofences. SciFriday on SkyWatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert, along with Sharon Gilbert. And the world in which we live is the universe in which we live, the multiverse, if you will, is so intriguing and compelling. It is such a magnificent design that we as Christians have nothing to fear from science, but science is actually a wonderful tool to help us better understand.
That's why I became a scientist. I love science because it helps me to understand God's creation that much more.
Amen.
However, we are very limited in our ability to comprehend
That's right.
His amazing creation because, as I said, it goes way past the physical. There is a so-called settled science that's been around for a long time. This idea that there's only so much oil in the ground.
Right, peak oil theory.
Peak oil.
Which actually first came out about 90 years ago. In the 1920s, there were experts who were warning us that we were going to run out of oil within a decade.
Guess what? We've still got some.
We've still got some.
Well,
we still got a lot. That's why the price of gasoline has dropped so much, because there's oil sitting in tankers offshore that won't come into the land because it would be at a loss.
Well, get ready for a crazy story, because scientists have figured out that they can turn algae into oil.
Oh.
Yep.
So perhaps there's an organic origin to hydrocarbons?
Well, you'd think so if they can turn algae into oil. The scientists believe that they have isolated the gene that permits this to take place. And if they can isolate the whole thing that encodes for an enzyme that allows this to be created out of thin air, essentially, the plan is eventually to take tobacco plants or something else that grows very quickly, because it takes a couple of weeks for an algae cell, at least the algae that this grows in, to reproduce. This is Boterococcus browni is the name of the algae, and it makes these liquid hydrocarbons that will be grown in tobacco plants. They are going to use this technology. It's referred to as genome mining is what they're doing. It allows the closer investigation of interesting enzymes so that these enzymes can later be used for applications in healthcare or in industry. And of course, these artificial hydrocarbons will probably be everywhere. What I find really interesting about this is there's only so much land to grow plants for food.
Yeah.
And yet so many scientists now want to take plants to grow not only these hydrocarbons, but also to grow pharmaceuticals and vaccines.
Right.
This is crazy town.
Yeah. Yeah. Here in America, of course, we've had an ethanol boom about 10 years ago.
Well, it's bust now.
Well, it is bust now, yes. The U.S. government was subsidizing the ethanol industry. And we were growing corn, and many, many millions of acres of land were converted over to growing corn, specifically to convert it into ethanol and then add it to our gasoline supply so that we could stretch out our gasoline supply.
Yeah.
And we were growing food to burn it inside our cars. Is that nuts?
It really is nuts. With so many people in the world starving, we're worried about whether or not we can, start up our engines.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting though, because again, this algae that is... It's kind of funny the way they put it in the article here. They say that it is, what's the word they used? It's found pretty much everywhere. There's a word that they used here that...
Other than omnipresent?
Well, yeah, they basically found you can grow it pretty much promiscuous. That was the word.
No, it's
the enzyme is promiscuous.
Ubiquitous means it's found everywhere. Promiscuous means it works with more than one molecule. So.
So it will produce several different types of hydrocarbon products, including, again, biofuels. But again, I think the implication of this, though, is intriguing. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Jerome Corsi, who is a staff writer for WND, WorldNet Daily. He's written a number of really intriguing books, one on the Kennedy assassination. He wrote about the North American Union back when it was not nice to say so, because, conservatives weren't supposed to believe that the Bush administration was trying to, make us part of a North American, the globalist agenda. But he wrote a book called The Great Oil Conspiracy a few years ago, arguing that oil was the product of an abiotic process, a natural process deep within the earth, which is why wells that were thought to be tapped out decades ago are producing again.
Yeah.
So here we've got scientists who are showing one process by which this could happen naturally. And so maybe Dr. Corsi wasn't crazy after all.
Well, another disturbing part of this is that I've never thought Jerry Corsi is crazy.
No.
He's amazing. But another disturbing part of this is that this takes place in fresh water. This algae lives in fresh water.
Right.
If indeed science figures out a way to speed up the process or to find another algae that can survive and produce the same thing, it runs a risk of possibly poisoning freshwater sources. Now, I don't know if that would happen, but imagine growing oil in your field.
Yeah, not what you want.
No. Now, I know that that's being extreme, and imagine I would do that. But it concerns me that scientists are willing to completely move away from the natural products that, tobacco should be just a plant. It shouldn't be a small factory.
Yeah.
And yet it's being turned into a small factory. So yeah, kind of crazy. Let's see, what else do we have here? Radioactive
time for one more.
One more?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, then we have to go to Borzilla.
Yes. This is...
I'm so sorry we've run out of time, but at least we could get to Borzilla.
Yeah.
The Fukushima reactor has left essentially a wasteland around it. the small towns around Fukushima
Yeah.
have been abandoned, and no one can live there. The radiation levels are still very high, but apparently a species of wild boar is going nuts. It has no problem reproducing,
Yeah.
even in that radioactive environment.
Boy, scientists are saying that they are, well, they're breeding like rabbits.
They are taking over. They've increased by 330%.
Huh. That is, well, you know, in a way, it's we can see the humor in it, but at the same time, we understand that this is not really a laughing matter.
Not at all. It's a real wilding that's taking place
Yeah.
because of the abandonment. And if ever people, and Japan's a very small area, so if they want to actually recoup this area and take it back, they're going to and they've sent hunters in
Yeah.
to try to take out the boar. And honestly, it's not the boar's fault.
No,
They're just doing what they, were designed to do.
filling an ecological niche. Yeah,
Yeah.
the population's increased by 3 times in the 4 years since the disaster. But yeah, they've said it's caused almost $15 million worth of damage to crops in the area.
Yeah, it's terrible.
SciFriday, we're on Facebook. Make sure you check out our Facebook page. You'll find the link here on the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to try to repeat it because it's long.
And you can send us email.
Yes.
SciFriday at SkyWatchTV.com.
Have a blessed weekend. We'll be back next week. Next week's program on SkyWatch TV, the full program, Gary Haven, writer-producer of the new film Amerigeddon.
He is so cool. I really enjoyed having him here. He's got to come back.
Yeah, an important message too. So have a blessed weekend, and until next time, thank you for watching as we keep watch. For Sharon Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV. Most American families are just 72 hours away from disaster. Here at SkyWatch TV, we hope we can help avoid that.
I have been given permission to tell about this massive deal. There's one packet where you get one of each of these, breakfast and entree buckets, and again, 25 years shelf life. With that, you will get 15 of these Wise Fire packets. You'll get one of this water bottle. It will filter 99.9% of the impurities out of your water. Also, you will get for free this awesome auto kit.
Now, there's another package.
There are 2 more packages. The second package, you get 3 of each bucket. You pay for those, and you get the auto kit free, you get the Wise Fire free, and you get 2 of these bottles. There's a third deal. You won't believe this one. You get 6 of each of these. You get the auto kit free, you get the Wise Fire free, you get 2 bottles. Guess what else? You get the Mac Daddy
Ooh.
50-gallon water storage container. If the electric grid goes down, one of these is going to come very handy.
3 packages for preparedness. One that feeds a family of 6 for a month. One that feeds a family of 6 for 3 months. And one that feeds a family of 6 for half a year, and of course that includes the 50-gallon water tank. You'll find all of those deals online, the Wise Food Preparedness Specials at SkyWatchTVStore.com.
Violate the laws of physics.
Right, right. Yeah, and peer review is, someone who was part of the academic community.
Yes.
When we met, you were working at the IU.
I was conducting research.
And
yes,
conducting
I was.
retool at the School of Optometry for
And they
Indiana
let me
University.
do it. That's what's amazing.
Yeah. You understand that peer review doesn't necessarily mean that something is actually passed some sort of test that
No.
that
It's all-
validates the science.
Precisely. It simply is having people who are trusted in the field look at the paper, make sure, first of all, that you did your due diligence, that the numbers add up, this and that. But it doesn't mean that it will work.
Yeah, yeah. And there are some horror stories out there, and I don't have the numbers in front of me because I didn't think we'd go here, but that showing that even peer-reviewed science, that a fraction, less than half of the the experience that most of us don't even know.
We don't know half the things that are going on in the world.
We don't even know half the things we talk about on this
I don't
program.
know who are you again? I don't know who I am. Well, welcome again to SciFriday. You know what? We've got lots of stuff to talk about. We've got the longest list I think we've ever had. And we'll never get through
through all of it. So
No.
let's just dive in and see how much we can cover.
What's the first thing you want to talk about?
Well, I thought there was some, as long as we're starting with this Star Trek reference, there was a new engine that NASA has been talking about here for some months. We mentioned it once or twice on the daily news updates. It's what they're calling the M drive, or the EM drive, which is supposedly a fuel-free engine that
Electromagnetic
the developers,
drive.
yes,
Is that what they're saying?
I believe so. But the idea that this is fuel-free almost makes it sound like a perpetual motion machine. You know, like one of those Rube Goldberg type things. That
No, perpetual motion means that it doesn't require any outside stimulus. This does, because it's using solar energy.
Well, it's using solar energy to create the power, and it supposedly, according to the designers who've been working on this, creates thrust by bouncing microwaves around inside of a chamber. And they claim that it could generate enough power to transport a craft to Mars in 10 weeks.
And cook a turkey on
And
the way
cook a
there.
turkey in less than 20 minutes, which is really incredible. So, but now, many of the scholars have looked at this, and engineers have looked at this, say that this just cannot possibly work because you cannot defy the laws of physics. It supposedly, violates the laws of physics, but there are engineers now and scientists who are going to look at this.
It's being peer reviewed right now.
It is going to be peer
which may or
reviewed.
may not mean it will work. It's just whether or not they believe that it does
Right.
not.
Speak, friend, and enter. It's time for Science! SciFriday on SkyWatchTV. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert, and joining us in studio, as always, my best friend and the SkyWatchTV science editor, Sharon Gilbert.
Hi, honey.
Hi, sweetheart.
Melon.
Yes,
That's the Middle Earth name, the Elvish word for friend.
we are total geeks.
We truly are way too geeky. In fact, your ears are a little bit pointy.
They are. I always thought, that's why I related so well to Mr. Spock on Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's how I
You
learned to
can
do
the
this.
thing. Oh, yeah, the Spock brow.
Oh, and of course, this has got actually Jewish significance.
It does, and
Yeah.
that actually Nimoy came up with.
Right, right. So there's a little backstory. Experiments that make it into peer-reviewed journals are actually replicable. So
I've seen dachshund scientists though, and their stuff always works.
yeah, or else.
German engineering.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We could talk about a bunch of things. Well, you've probably talked about this on your updates already, but just in case you're not aware of it, there is a 3D printed version of the Gate of Bel from Palmyra that
Right.
is being. It really is being constructed in London, and then later on this year, it'll be constructed in New York City.
Right.
What I find interesting about those two cities is that they are connected already. They both have the needle of Cleopatra in them.
And this was really interesting. I had not made this connection, but I think this
Well,
is
I'm doing
significant.
a 19th century